What's up, everybody? Welcome to Podcast Now, Back to the Past. I'm Alex, and in this video, I want to talk about Gris. Now, this kind of came out of left field for me. I wasn't planning actually on covering this game. I wanted a game that was kind of short, and another game that I had in mind fell through. And this is all kind of important because I went in not really knowing a lot about this game. It was actually kind of a new game on PlayStation Plus at the time that I played it, and I had heard about it. Like, the name sounded familiar, and I did a little research right before I jumped in. The game is actually pretty popular. It sold over 3 million units. It's pretty much out on everything. I mean, it was very staggered. It came to PS4 5 years ago, came to some of the more next-gen consoles even after that, came out, I think, to the Switch even before it. So this game has been out since like 2018, but then over the last 4 or 5 years or since then, from 2018 to like 2022, it released on everything that you can imagine, and the game did really well, again, selling 3 million units. And so I went in knowing it's a side scroller, knowing that it was kind of more about the story and about like the colors. I remember seeing things about that, and that was kind of it. So I fire the thing up, and this is a short game, right? This is like maybe it took me like 2 hours, 45 minutes, and I was taking my time. I also got stuck maybe like 2 different times in this game. Let me say something, okay? This game is really spectacular. This game, I highly, highly recommend. If you've never played this before, maybe you've heard of it like I did, but didn't really look into it, I highly recommend playing it. Now, it is a side scroller. I wouldn't really call it like a Metroidvania type thing. I mean, there is kind of like a central area that you're in, and then you go off to 4 different parts of the world. I mean, they're almost like kind of like alternate dimensions, right? And you bring colors back to the main world, and you solve kind of this issue that's going on with your character. Now, I want to go into spoilers, so we probably will do that. I'll talk about it a little spoiler-free first, and I kind of want to get into like what the game is about, and that's just so I can express my feelings on it. You guys can know what I think about it, and if you want to check it out, right, you don't get spoiled. So in terms of the game itself, it really is a game more about how it looks and how it feels and the story it's telling and the emotion that it's making you feel based off the character. It is more about that than anything else. But I would say this, it's not a bad side scroller at all. It's actually quite fun. It is it's not complex, but this is a game where, she gains abilities, and, every so often. The pacing, I think, is actually really good, right? So initially, it's just jumping. Eventually, there's double jumping. Eventually, there's turning into stone, and the stone can do things like, balancing, scales and whatnot, and getting things to kind of move where you want it to move. And that's pretty much it. Like, it's just a lot of almost parkouring, getting from one place to the next, figuring out, like, which thing to jump on before the other thing, running away from certain things, dealing with wind. You do that at some points. Like, it is, from that perspective, it's a pretty simplistic game. But, I kind of want to focus on that first because it's something you can say spoiler-free, but it's also not that big of a deal. But it's also pretty solid. Like, again, going into it, kind of knowing what the strengths and the weaknesses of this game were, I don't know if I would actually say this game has a weakness. I guess it is less quality than the other stuff. So, okay, but by that definition, I guess it's weaker, but it's not bad. There is no, let me amend my past statement. There's not a bad part to this game. I think the parkouring and the movements of it is completely fine. I think the puzzle solving in this game is actually quite good. Again, I got stuck here and there. One time I got stuck towards the very end. It was simply I didn't know where to look. There was one thing kind of directly in front of me that lets you kind of boost up to like other areas, and I didn't even see it. And so I looked and I was like, what am I missing? Because I have all these stars, which is, so most of this game is this, right? You go to an area, it's got a color coding to it, which is reflective of a certain thing. And you go through kind of this arc, so the puzzles will kind of reflect it, the nature, the environment will reflect it, and you're basically looking for lights, right? So lights will light up the constellations in kind of your hub world, and that's the end of the game. So every area you go and you search for, okay, you need 3 lights to unlock this thing to get you to the next area. Go around and find those 3. They're very easy to find, and then like there's a puzzle associated with each of them. And again, the puzzles are not by any means too difficult. It's just kind of almost knowing where to look. I would say actually towards the end of the game they do something with flipping the world. So like they'll do a midpoint to the actual screen, and when you cross that midpoint, the game will flip and you'll be upside down. I actually really, really liked that. I thought that was very, very clever, and that was probably the most like gamey, like where it felt like the most like, okay, you've really got to think. you've almost got to really plan out your jumps more than you've ever done before. Actually, that elevated the game quite a bit. Now, that's kind of just one zone, like that's maybe like a 30-minute thing. But you know what? I can kind of respect that because this game is broken up, right? So there's like underwater areas, and you can kind of dash under, and I love that. I also think, by the way, the water in this game is very good. But you know, each area kind of has its own thing. One of them, you're going to be using more like lights to find paths, like in the sky. There's water stuff. There's, you know, flipping the world, you know, like on its axis and stuff. I mean, that's they do it really well, and the pacing of that is extremely good. So, and that's the game. I mean, in terms of the gameplay itself, that's the game. If that doesn't sell you, I understand. It's more about the other stuff, but it's hard to talk about the other stuff. So what we're going to do, I'm going to kind of put a pin in this right now. I want to talk about, you know, kind of the deeper themes and stuff of this game, and we're going to do it. 3, 2, 1, here we go. So this game is about colors, right? It's about the stages of grief, and that was something that, so going into this game, I knew about the stages of grief, but I didn't know, like, necessarily what was going on. What I actually find interesting, if you watch, like, other people's walkthroughs, again, when I got stuck, I was looking down the comments, I was like, oh, yeah, let's see what the general public was thinking of this game 4 or 5 years ago. You know, some people interpreted it differently. Now, the game is, I think, about her losing her mom, okay? It's about the grief of her mom dying, and she's got to, like, figure it out, and she goes through those stages of grief. She loses herself, hence the kind of black ink that manifests into the different creatures, which, by the way, is super, super cool. I really love that. But then even, you know, at the very end, her kind of getting swallowed by herself, having to break free, and she kind of needs her mom's help, combined with the singing, and that's kind of what gets it done, right? So I think it's about the mom. There are other people that don't actually believe that. I don't know which one you want to believe, but for me, I think that makes a good story. But again, what makes this game so special is a lot of the storytelling through, like, looking at things, you know, and that's not going to work for everybody, right? There's some games where when you do something like this and you kind of have to pay attention to what the colors are, what the themes of the game are, you know, the statues kind of tell us, even the statues being broken and being slowly, like, mended as the game goes on. Or, like I said, even the kind of analogy of being swallowed by yourself, right? Like, you're in this, like, gunk, this like, black ink, the black ink monster that's coming after you. You know, it's a lot about themes. It's a lot about environmental storytelling. Like, is that a phrase, right? It's about what you see that's telling the story. Now, like I said earlier, I actually think the game is just well-rounded in general, where everything does a really good job. But primarily, I think it's a very special game when it comes to that, because you don't really, I mean, how many games do you know of that goes through those 5? And I mean, they do it so well, right? Like the 5 stages of grief, and they're each represented by their colors, and so those worlds have those colors. And like I said, the themes that the game does, I mean, it's the themes of how it looks and where you are in the world, and also kind of the gameplay style that goes along with it. And one thing I really loved, I didn't even mention in the spoiler-free part, but the sound in this game is so special. Even the smaller things, like in the beginning of the game, the very beginning, you can't jump. And, like, that really, I think, shows how beaten down this character is, right? Like, she can't even jump yet. Now, that fixes itself maybe, like, 10 minutes into the game, but initially, she can't even freaking jump. And then as she goes, she develops all of these powers, and, you know, then she gets kind of the main ability, right, which is to sing. Now, going back to the sound stuff, her singing, you know, it's really like, what, 2 or 3 audio tracks. Like, she repeats. If you hold down the singing thing, she'll do kind of like 2 different ranges. And I love it. I mean, I don't really know how to describe it. Like, just that sound, like, resonate. It's a beautiful voice. And I don't know, it's just so powerful. And I think it's just so well, you know, sung, I guess would be the word from their angle. But from ours, it's like, man, yeah, it's very powerful. And I love it. I think when they introduce, you know, that's something you obviously can't talk about, I think, in the spoiler-free section, but her being able to sing kind of that last step, right? Where she almost has it. She's almost back, and then she kind of has to defeat that inner demon kind of holding her back, and that's the very end of the game. But, you know, when she's able to sing and open up the flowers to kind of, you know, reach new heights, which could also be, you know, a metaphor as well. Love it. Absolutely. And that's where I got stuck, by the way. There was a flower where those things that can shoot you up into the air, it was there, and I didn't see it. And I actually had collected all the lights. So that last section, you need like 6 or so lights, and then I think you need like 3 more. And I had them all, and then I couldn't find like where am I supposed to go with them, and I couldn't find that to go up to start going up the constellations and stuff. So I just kind of want to highlight that because that's a big character moment for her, but also it's just a really cool gameplay moment, being able to sing and just what that does to the environment. But it's a beautiful game. It's a beautiful game to look at. It's a beautiful game to listen to. It's a beautiful game to kind of think about. I don't know. I didn't get too deep into it where I was trying to like put it on my, I've lost people, but it's like I didn't go like that deep into it, but the kind of storytelling of going through that grief and her literally rebuilding herself, right? So like that's a really big part of it, is she's literally fixing, I don't know if you want to necessarily say that kind of phrase, but just the way she's putting herself back together, that's probably the right phrase, right? She's literally rebuilding herself, putting herself back together, and for them to show that through the statues, through the constellations and getting everything, and each one kind of does it, through the couple different battles with like the inner demon basically, right, and trying to combat it. Well, really, a lot of it's running away from it, right? A couple times it is fighting it, but other times it's literally just getting away from it. And then, you think about actually the ending, the the turtle, I believe, right? Like it literally goes through it. It destroys it, right? So it's like you do have to kind of combat that stuff. You can't just run away from it and let it linger there, because that's what you were kind of doing the whole game. So I mean, it's those kind of themes and storytelling on top of storytelling that I think makes this game very special. And again, I didn't really have any expectation. I wanted a short game that I could beat in a couple days, and another game I was playing didn't really feel like I could do a good video on it, and I felt, okay, let's look through the subscription services, found this game, and thought, I've heard about it. I know that people really like it, but I played it, and now here we go. Now we have a video. So let me know what you guys think in the comments. Make sure, as always, you're subscribed to the channel, bell icon turned on. I hope to see you all on the next one.